Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this special video looking at what I've actually done to my Fiesta ST2 to get it to stage 2. Okay, so I've owned this car for about 1 year now, and I've done about 10,000 miles. So I bought it with 47,000 miles, it's now at 58, and during that time I've actually put on the hardware necessary to get this car remapped to stage 2 to make around about 240 to 250 horsepower. So in this video I'm actually going to describe those modifications that I've actually done. Now, one of the reasons why I decided to go to stage 2 was because one of my cousins came down to visit me in North Wales. I don't live that far from Anglesey Circuit, so my cousin Imtiaz, who actually has his own channel and has his own garage in Derby called G-Tech Motorworks, which is a BMW, VW and Audi specialist. Got to give a shout out to him. So he came down with his track prepared BMW 1 Series, and I took my Fiesta on the track as well, and it was a fantastic car out of the box. As stock, it was immensely fun to drive around the circuit, but what I found was it was lacking in power. And I found that the 180 horsepower might be fine, generally speaking, on the A and B roads, but if you're going to track it, then obviously you need more power. But I also think on a B road, having it at stage 2 with a limited slip differential is actually the right way to go with these cars. You're going to have something that's tremendously fast and going to be great fun to drive, and we'll be able to go through those corners and with an LSD be really hooked up. So that led me then to basically the track day led me to the conclusion that I need to get this car to stage 2, and that then led me onto all of the modifications. So I was inspired a lot by people on various forums. So a gentleman in particular called Cavani or Cavani, I think I've pronounced his name properly, he had a thread on piston heads which detailed how he converted his standard Fiesta actually in the same colour to a track car, and he did some amazing, probably one of the best write-ups I've actually seen on modifying a car, getting it ready for the track. So a lot of things I was inspired by him and his views, and then there were some other people like Sparkplug Steve, who's got a fantastic channel, very knowledgeable, able to learn a lot of things. Mark Cup was another person where I was able to learn particularly about heel and toe shifting, which this car is very easy to do, and also how to change the brakes and stuff. So a lot of the things on this car I've actually done myself, but obviously specialist jobs that are beyond my capability, or in fact that I can't do on the drive, I'd go and get done at a garage. So for example, changing the exhaust, I don't want to be underneath this car in the freezing cold trying to wriggle around fitting an exhaust. I'd rather just get that done from a specialist. But things like the intercooler, which you can see here, the ITG induction kit, those types of things are well within my capabilities. It's also got a quick shifter and a rolling roll restrictor as well. But we'll talk through all of those, and I'll actually show you all of these modifications in greater detail. Now, one of the first modifications that I actually did was to fit a Scorpion resonated exhaust from the Cat back, and this exhaust actually required a little adapter because I think the Cat is about 2-inch diameter, and then this was a 3-inch system, so I wanted to get the biggest system. I don't necessarily think you need to have a 3-inch system. I think you could probably get away with the 2.75-inch system, but I wanted to kind of future-proof the car. If I ever wanted to go beyond stage 2, then I would actually have an exhaust which was very free-flowing. I don't think it detracts from the car in any way. We will do the obligatory sound check. So you can see that it's quite a nice sounding exhaust. It doesn't really resonate or boom too much, but I do think at between 70 to 80 miles an hour, particularly if you start accelerating, you do get quite a loud, fair amount of noise, but it's not bassy or boomy or drony. I think it would be much worse if the resonator wasn't on there, but I didn't want a very noisy exhaust, but I did want something that was better than stock. Okay, so another modification that's quite important is to have an induction system. Now there's lots on the market, but by far the best is the ITG induction system. So when I was doing some reading, especially on the American ST forums, they found when doing some tests that the ITG being an open filter away from the hot air, because it's actually located under the headlight, was actually the best in terms of getting the maximum amount of air into the engine. So essentially it's an open filter, and you take the headlight off and the filter sits very close to this front bumper here, and it's away from that hot air. There's actually just enough room from the bumper to the filter part to get enough airflow going in. I know some people actually use some ducting from the fog lights to go straight to the air filter, but I don't necessarily think it's needed. I did find that the car was a lot more responsive, a little bit quicker, although I don't think it makes any difference to brake horsepower, very much doubt that. It does make a lot of whooshing sound, which is not to everybody's cup of tea. Personally, I like it. I think it adds to the character of the car, and it doesn't really bother me too much, but that's one thing to think about. There are other induction kits as well that you can use. All have their pros and cons. I think they're probably all pretty similar, to be honest, but I do think the ITG is the one worth having if you're going to go for stage 2. So another important modification is to have an intercooler fitted. So on this car I opted for the AirTech Stage 1 intercooler, which is sufficient for well over 260 horsepower, and with the Stage 2 map this is going to be somewhere between 240 to 250, so this will do the job. Essentially the intercooler is not going to increase the amount of power the car makes, but it's more about once it's been tuned, then it's able to deal with the heat that's being produced, and I think that gets fed into the turbo. So it's a much more efficient intercooler. When you do a side-by-side comparison, I'm showing you the photos right now, you can see that the Stage 1 intercooler has a much thicker core, and it's obviously going to be much more efficient in cooling that hot air. So it means that you can actually keep running at a high power level. So if your car's mapped to 250 horsepower, then it will stay at 250 horsepower regardless of the heat that's being produced. If you use the stock intercooler and you go to a stage 2, then essentially some tuners might not even actually map the car with a stock intercooler, just say it's not worth it, and those that do might actually see a reduction in the power that the car is actually producing. So it's very important to actually have this modification done. In terms of fitting this, I did fit this myself. It's a front bumper off job, but it's quite easy to do. Once you know where the screws are and where the lugs are, you can just pull the bumper off, put it to one side. You've got quite a lot of space to work with, and essentially you're just undoing a hose on each side, taking out the old intercooler, putting the new one up, make sure it lines up properly, you've got the right brackets and stuff, and then you just fit the bumper back on again. So it's a fairly straightforward job, probably about an hour and a half job. I watched a couple of YouTube tutorials just to make sure that I knew how to take the front bumper off more than anything else. The fitting of the intercooler was quite straightforward, but I do think it's an important modification. If you're going to go to stage 2, you need to do it properly. So we've got the induction kit on, we've got the exhaust on, we've got the intercooler. This car essentially is ready to go to stage 2 for its remap. So I'm just editing this video just to record a little bit of an outro. Now, the modifications that I've described in today's video, the main ones that would be important for a stage 2 are the intercooler, an exhaust system from the catback, and also an induction kit of some kind as well. So it's important to get those modifications on. Then you can actually decide what tuner you actually want to take your car to. Now, you could take your car to Collins, to Montune or Mountune. There's many other people, Revo for example, lots of companies that offer stage 2 software updates for the ECU. Most likely I'm going to go for a rolling road custom map on my car. I'm yet to decide where I'm going to take it, but when that day occurs, which should hopefully be sometime in the very near future, I'll obviously produce a video about how that process goes, who I actually go with, what the process actually involves as well. And of course I'll do a video driving the car to see what it actually feels like at stage 2. So the hardware is all on, it's now just a case of finding the right people to actually map the car, and that's something that I'm going to look forward to a lot. And of course at that time I can talk about things, you know, the options that you have, like having overrun, having anti-theft mode, or running with being able to use higher fuel, 99 RON for example, but those are all things that I'll talk about in a separate video. So I really do hope that you've enjoyed today's video. I hope it's been informative and it's been able to show you the journey that I've taken so far to get my ST2 to stage 2, or get it ready for stage 2, and I'll hopefully see you on the next one.